Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Chamber Connections. I'm Daniel Tisch, CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. On this show, we explore current public policy issues, we explore the incredible diversity within the Ontario Chamber's business network, and we highlight business contributions to our communities. Today, we're talking about the challenges of entrepreneurship with one of the dragons, a guy who can help us address the idea of making diversity, equity, and inclusion a competitive advantage, because it's something he's been doing all his life. To that end, I'm really excited to welcome Wes Hall to the Ontario Chamber studio. As chairman and founder of Kingsdale Advisors, We Shall Investments, and the Black North Initiative, Wes employs and supports a diverse group of professionals, and he has a portfolio of companies that seek out BIPOC entrepreneurs. Wes is the author of the best-selling memoir, No Bootstraps When You're Barefoot, and he's also on the hit CBC series, Dragon's Den. Thank you for joining us, Wes.
Dan, thanks for having me.
So this year is a big year for you. It's been 40 years since you came to Canada from Jamaica as a teenager. I can somewhat relate to the experience, not from Jamaica, but my family came, a decade and a half earlier from Latin America. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your perspective and how you've seen change, what kind of change you've seen in Canada since those early days.
Well, I was a 16-year-old kid when I came to Canada, and I had no expectation as to what Canada would bring to me. However, it was Canada, right? Like, I was in extreme poverty in rural Jamaica. I left that, came to Malvern. Malvern was a tough neighborhood when I moved here. But to me, it was like I left Jamaica, which, people go on vacation and say it's paradise because the waters are so beautiful and the sand and all this kind of stuff. Paradise was Canada for me.
Yeah.
And when I came here and I saw the highways and the lights and everything, I go, I can't fail in this country. I can't fail in this country. And I met a lot of Canadians who just gave me a shot after shot after shot. And unfortunately, I think we're reverting. We're going backwards. Because now we're talking about new immigrants. We've got to close our borders. We're blaming all our problems on immigrants coming to Canada. But all those people coming to this place, they have one goal in mind. I would say 90% of the people, 95, 98% of the people that come here, I want to make my life better. And by extension, I want to make this country better. And they have a massive appreciation for Canada letting them in to this country. And that's how I feel. And I feel that way for 39 years now, for 40 years now being in this country.
It's interesting, I don't remember coming to Canada. I was too small to remember. But I do remember in the early 70s, Canada being, Toronto, this great global city, not being terribly diverse at the time or welcome to diversity. Are we doing better now, do you think, at embracing diversity, a cause that I know you fought so hard for over the course of your career?
Well, my dad would tell the story when he came here, like you did, but he was older. He was 25 years old when he came here. And he would tell the story about just the racism that he experienced, whereby he would talk to somebody on the phone to get a job or to get an apartment. And when he shows up, they're like, oh, we don't have a job for you. The job is gone, or the apartment is rented. And just the overt racism that he experienced. For me, I didn't experience what he experienced. It was better for me, and it's also better for my children now. So change is happening. The change is slow, but it's actually happening. So if I look at the diversity of Toronto today versus when I came here in 1985, It's a very different diversity.
Yeah.
Like you walk down Yonge Street back in the day, you don't see people of color or too many people of color. But now you see it. Just in our university, I'm Chancellor of the University of Toronto, 80% of the kids at the University of Toronto are identify as diverse.
Amazing.
80%.
Yeah, 80%.
And we have 100,000 students.
Wow.
So that shows that the face of Canada, Toronto, has changed massively since you got here in the 70s and my dad got here in the 70s and me getting here in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I would say if we look at it another 10 years from today, it's going to change even more so.
Right. One thing I reflect on is we see this extraordinary diversity when we walk, along the street. But yet, when we take the elevator up to the boardroom, all of a sudden there's a lot less diversity even now. So talk to me a little bit about the challenge of increasing the level of diversity in boardrooms. This is something I know that Black North was explicitly designed to address. How's that going?
Well, first of all, we had people, we didn't have them do anything. They did it voluntarily.
Yeah.
They signed the pledge voluntarily. The pledge that they signed, that the CEO signed, it was a CEO pledge. So you, for example, the CEO of the chambers, you would sign that pledge. It's a principle-based document, meaning that you're just doing it because this is the right thing to do.
Right.
Nobody's forcing you to do it. So you look in your organization and go, okay, there's certain commitments that I'm going to make. I'm going to make a commitment from the top of the organization, the boardroom, all the way down to entry level, right? But as you mentioned, the funnel gets very narrow as you go up the top. So that's why we have to start at the boardroom and see if we have diversity in the boardroom. And if we don't have diversity, we're going to make a commitment that we're going to do it by 2025.
Right.
All right. In the case of the Black community, these companies committed that by 2025, 3.5% of their boardrooms will be Black, because 3.5% at the time of the Canadian population is Black. Now, when we did that in 2020, 3.5% of the population was Black.
Right.
Today, it's 4.5%.
Right.
So when we're talking about the increase and the change in the face of Toronto, it took a while for the changes to happen for us and our parents, but it's a lot faster for our kids.
Yeah.
And so these companies have made that commitment, and believe it or not, the latest stats that we have, those companies now their board represents 3.1%.
Okay.
They still have another year to do it.
Right.
But that's a massive improvement, because when we started, some of these companies had zero.
Yeah.
The numbers were, some didn't even register, right? So to go from there to 3.1% in like 3 years, that's amazing.
So that's interesting, and and congratulations, because that really is meaningful. There's often such a challenge between going from promises to performance, right? And it sounds like there's a little bit of, if you shoot for the stars, you might at least get to the moon, right?
You might.
So the other thing that I'm thinking a lot about is we talk consistently at the Chamber about Canada's challenges with productivity, with innovation, right, with competitiveness. And yet we have this incredibly diverse workforce, incredibly diverse society, which should be a competitive advantage. So what's your view as to how we can harness or maybe unleash that diversity to make this country more productive?
Well, a lot of the wounds we see here in Canada, it's self-inflicted.
Yeah.
We're doing it to ourselves. Nobody is infiltrating our borders and sabotaging us. Like, we're doing it ourselves. We have the best of the best that wants to come to this country because they look at other places in the world and go, no, I don't want to be there.
Yeah, you see that in the students at U of T as they're graduating, I'm sure.
Yes. I sit in classes, whether it be on AI, whether it be science classes, research on different things, and I see brilliance. My mind is blown when I see what these kids are working on.
Right.
And so when these immigrants come to this country these days, the government of Canada has a policy that if you're coming to this country as an immigrant, you either must be an economic immigrant, meaning that you're coming with a wallet full of money, or you're educated. And that's how we let you in. So those people are not adding a burden to our system, healthcare system, our work. They're coming in to set up businesses. They're coming in to do amazing research. They are additive to our country, and we're kind of preventing them from doing what they do.
Right. Well, and we're also making it difficult if there isn't enough affordable housing to allow people to settle where they want to settle and be able to get to work on time because congestion is so bad on the transit system, right? So these are long-term problems that require a lot of long-term investment. Do you feel like we're on the right track?
Well, first of all, I feel that government has to step out of the way a little bit and let entrepreneurs and business people solve the problems, the complex problems that we have.
Yeah.
Government, they're too bureaucratic to solve complex problems. Mm-hmm. Why do you think some entrepreneurs are so successful?
Yeah.
There's no red tape in their organization.
That's right.
Zero.
That's right.
They see something that needs to be done and it's done.
Yeah.
And if the person who they assign to get it done don't get it done, guess what happened to that person? They might not have a job the next day, right? But they can't just sit there and not make decisions and not move the organization forward.
Right.
If you want to get a house built in Toronto, why does it take 8 months, 9 months, 10 months to get a permit? Mm-hmm. To get a permit to get your house built.
Right.
Why is it that if you want to build a building to accommodate people to rent for rental or what have you, why does it take 2 years? It makes absolutely no sense. But so the policies that they put in place is impeding the progress of the nation. So the question you ask is it getting better? I think it will get better when government realize that they can't do the work in isolation.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more from Wes Hall very shortly.
Have you heard about Canada's #1 employee benefits plan for small business? Introducing Chambers Plan. With stable annual premiums supported by a business community over 30,000 strong. And add-ons included at no extra charge. Join a not-for-profit plan that's designed to ensure your business, employees, and local community stay healthy and strong. It's all within reach with Chambers Plan.
The Welland Canal is internationally known for its function as a transportation and economic hub in Ontario. However, what most people might not know is the instrumental role that the Welland Chamber of Commerce, formerly the Welland Board of Trade, played in its construction when the region required a reliable shipping route bypassing Niagara Falls. As the economic opportunities of a canal became evident, the Board of Trade led the charge, lobbying government officials alongside business leaders for its development. Through advocacy and collaboration with shipping and manufacturing companies, Welland's Board of Trade promoted the benefits of the undertaking. Since the original construction in 1829, there have been 4 iterations of the route. Today, the Welland Canal serves more than 3,000 ships each year, contributing to an estimated $5 billion in economic activity. Almost 200 years later, it is a testament to the lasting effects of a business community working together.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed our Main Street moment. It made a case, I thought, for getting involved with your local Chamber of Commerce or Board of Trade. We're joined again by Wes Hall. So Wes, before the break, we were just talking about how we can get all of this capital that the business world has, intellectual capital, financial capital, human capital, and get it off the bench and into the game to solve big problems in society. How can government get out of the way a little bit and let business activate?
Well, in some cases, government's view is that it's our job to solve these problems, but we know that it's not. They're just not set up to solve these complex problems, not on their own anyways.
Yeah.
And if we look at, for example, the Black North Initiative, right? We know that there is a massive diversity issue when it comes to Black people getting employment. And the government knows this. Stats can put out report after report actually telling us how bad it is. And they don't mince words when they tell us how bad it is for black people in the federal government, in the private sector, everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so the government knows about it. Why is the problem not solved? Well, when I started the Black North Initiative, what we decided to do, because what it's called is the Canadian Council of Business Leaders Against Anti-Black Systemic Racism. So what we've done is that we came together as a collective group of business leaders to use our business strategy to solve this problem on anti-Black racism in corporate Canada. And again, look how the needle moved in such a short period of time, because we're now we're going to treat this as a business problem.
Right.
We know that when you take diversity out of your business, that the business underperforms.
Right.
You don't have the best minds at the table.
Right.
You just don't. And so if I know that I'm going to leave money on the table, then what do I need to do to make sure that doesn't happen?
Right.
Especially when it comes to I don't have enough people with different thought process, different lived experiences. Now I get them on board, and guess what? My business becomes a lot better.
Right.
And once we see that happening, we start to do it even more so. The problem is a lot of people look at the issue of diversity as a subtraction as opposed to an addition, meaning that they think the pie is going to shrink when in fact the pie actually increases.
Right. It may be trickier to manage a more diverse workforce, but the performance is going to be greater if you can, right? And if you do.
When I started Kingsdale, 22 years now we've been in business. I started with one employee, me.
Yeah.
I put a website together, and they had my mug on the homepage of the website.
Right.
Black man is the chairman and CEO of Kingsdale Advisors. I was a one-man show. Then I put out posts in to look for other people. And then I see these brilliant people coming to me with multiple degrees. They were all immigrants.
Yeah.
They all had a common story. We have no Canadian experience. Everybody tells us that. So they won't hire us.
Familiar, yeah.
Second story, they don't like my accent and they don't get hired. That has nothing to do with intellect.
Right.
Zero.
Yeah.
Your accent. I can speak Jamaican to you right now, and then I can switch like me can speak right now, and I can switch back. Right?
Yeah.
But yet people go, I don't know about his accent. Not about what's in his head
Right.
or her head. So what did I do? I had all these talented people that came into this country because of their brilliance. They couldn't get a job, and I could get them at a discount.
Yeah.
Why? Because I wasn't competing with anyone for them.
Sure.
Nobody wanted them. They made my company number one to this day.
Yeah.
To this day.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Well, let's actually go there for a moment. I'd love if you could offer some advice to entrepreneurs, because a lot of small businesses, most of our chamber, our 60,000 members that we have in our chamber, are small businesses. Obviously, we have the big Bay Street, names that everybody knows, but we also have so many small businesses. And a lot of small businesses look at diversity and inclusion, and they're having trouble making progress, right? Because they're thinking, I'm not organized to change my business. I don't have time. What's your advice to them?
Well, my view is that, especially if you're a small business, it is an advantage to you because the big businesses aren't hiring these people.
Yeah.
And you get them just like I did,
Right.
at a discount.
Right.
We're not saying that you're underpaying these people, but if you go to the University of Toronto and your degree, you have a master's in whatever, there's a certain amount of money that comes with that degree that you get. And there's certain value that you get when you go into a big company. But let's say that big company is not hiring you, and you only can go to a 3-person shop or a 4-person shop. The value is going to be different. So all of a sudden, I, in the 3-person shop, can afford this person with this master's from U of T,
Right.
because the big companies don't want them. So that's when I talk about getting at a discount. It's an advantage to small companies.
Sure.
When they don't have these restrictions and these unconscious biases.
Well, the other issue is companies are, the data tell us, they're getting much better at recruiting diversity and even retaining diversity. But there still seems to be a gap between diversity and inclusion, right? And so that makes it more difficult to keep people for the long term.
Well, we talk about diversity, inclusion, and belonging.
Right. So
Right.
how do we work on those last two?
Yeah, like, listen, you can invite me to your house for dinner.
Yeah.
and I'm in your house having dinner, and you never speak to me the whole time.
Right.
But all your neighbors saw that you invited a black guy for dinner. So you get the credit. The neighbor's like, wow, Dan is amazing. He's got black people for dinner. But when I come into the house, you just don't speak to me. In fact, you got the steak and you gave me the bone. Nobody knows what's going on inside the house but you. Mm-hmm. Everybody sees the outside. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's been going on with a lot of companies. Mm-hmm. They've been just making a show that they're doing something. Mm. And then when the employees come in, the room is not prepared for them.
Right.
So it's not ready.
So what needs to be done?
So what needs to be done is the intention of the companies when they do these things. Mm. They have to be intentional.
Yes.
If you invite me to your house for dinner, you have to make me feel welcome by how you greet me, by where you sit me at the dinner. Do I sit next to you? Do I sit far away from you? How we interact.
Right.
So it's that welcoming part. Make me feel belong. Like, oh wow, Dan is a nice man after. And then the next time you invite me for dinner, I want to come.
Right. So there's an element of policy, there's an element of culture, right? There's an element of mentorship that's involved in that, right? I mean, how do you steward that experience for the employee? How have you? What are some good examples have you seen happen in that area?
Well, I would say this: Enbridge signed the Black North Pledge.
Yeah.
As you know, the pledge is 3.5% of the board black, 3.5% of C-suite black, blah blah blah. Enbridge signed 6 months after everybody else signed. When the fanfare was gone, nobody was paying attention to all this stuff anymore. They put out a press release, in fact, and they indicated not only are we going to sign the pledge, we're going to make sure that 30% of our board is diverse. 30%. 30% of our C-suite will be diverse. Our supply chain will have diverse suppliers in it. Could you imagine what that means to a 3-person shop or a 10-person shop, right? Or a black business or indigenous business when they know that Enbridge is going to specifically seek them out to do business with them?
Right. So they took their time.
They took their time, but they did something further.
Yeah.
Right? Because you asked the question, how can they make it happen?
Yeah.
They tied their executive compensation to achieving those objectives.
Right.
And I'm telling you, they have the first company of its size to have a chairwoman that's black. They met their objectives, and they're actually doing what they indicated that they're going to do, but it had to start from the top.
Right. Well, Wes, what a pleasure talking today. Before we wrap up, anything exciting that you're working on for 2025 that might be interesting to our audience?
Well, first of all, we talked a little bit about entrepreneurs and how I started as a small business, one person, and I mentioned that I built this company, We Shall Investments, now to become a support for entrepreneurs like myself who couldn't get capital, couldn't grow. We did an economic impact study on what we've done in the last 2 years at We Shall Investment. We added $1.2 billion of economic output to Canada, $700 million in GDP contribution. We actually grew our employee base in 2020 from 2,200 to 3,800 today. And 80% of our leaders in those businesses are either led by women or BIPOC individuals. And so that is because we intentionally went out and go, we're going to serve a market that nobody's going to serve. So for We Shall, we want to continue to deploy that kind of knowledge and expertise and support for budding entrepreneurs coming up. So I expect that 2025 is going to be an amazing year for entrepreneurs who have great ideas and looking for money. We Shall Investments, we're the place to be.
All right, there you go. There's some advice for the entrepreneurs watching, and then maybe an opportunity as well.
Maybe.
All right, well, thank you so much for a fantastic conversation.
Dan, thanks for having me.
Have you heard about Canada's #1 employee benefits plan for small business? Introducing Chambers Plan. With stable annual premiums supported by a business community over 30,000 strong. And add-ons included at no extra charge. Join a not-for-profit plan that's designed to ensure your business, employees, and local community stay healthy and strong. It's all within reach with Chambers Plan.
Well, thanks for joining us for this very compelling conversation with Wes Hall. I thought it was really interesting, some of the insights we discussed, how important it is to start with a very clear intention. what change you want to achieve, and to view it not just as a responsibility, but as an opportunity to make your business more successful and more productive, because we know that diverse businesses are both. I was also struck by Wes's comments about the success of the Black North Initiative, how they set a goal of getting to 3.5% diversity in the boardroom, and they're getting to 3.1% now, and 2025 is only just beginning. So sometimes if you aim high, you shoot for the stars, you might get to the moon, but you keep making progress, and I find that inspiring. So in addition to thanking Wes Hall for being my guest today, I want to thank our series presenting partner, the Chambers Plan, Canada's #1 employee benefits plan for small business. Chambers Plan, it's for your benefit. Finally, I want to thank you, our audience, for watching today, and we hope for joining us in an ongoing conversation about the issues that we talk about here. You can find the Ontario Chamber on LinkedIn, on X, on Facebook, and now on Instagram. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.